All right, welcome everyone. I see we have participant list growing. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to give folks 1 minute to join and then we'll get started. All right. Thank you so much for joining AB 705, a student civil right to begin and transfer level English and math. We'll just give folks a bit more time to join us. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Let's give folks about 20 more seconds. All right. So, hi everyone. My name is Karina Paredes. Bienvenidos todos. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. Again, my name is Karina. I'm the Student Engagement and Policy Associate with Public Advocates. I work on the higher education team. A bit about PA, we're a civil rights law firm and advocacy organization based off in K-12 and higher ed education equity, also transportation, housing, and climate justice. And I'm super thrilled to be co-hosting this on behalf of Public Advocates with our partner, Students Making a Change, the Student Center for California Community Colleges, the California Acceleration Project, and we're just going to jump right in. But first, a couple of housekeeping rules. As you'll know, you can only see us, we can't see you. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section and we'll be sure to answer them. We'll be collecting questions to answer at the very end, unless we answer them right on the spot through our Q&A section. And at the very end, we'll have an exit survey that we really hope you all fill out. We'd love to get a better sense of who's with us in the audience today. And for students, this is your way to join our raffle. So please fill this out so we can include you in the raffle. We'll be giving out 5 $30 gift cards just as a way to show up for our students and have something fun for y'all to engage with throughout this webinar too, and like a reason to also be here. So I know your time is super precious and we're just really thankful for all that are joining, but specifically our students. And with that, before we dive in, I'd like to pass it over to our new Director of Higher Education at Public Advocates. I'm thrilled to give a brief moment to recognize this new hire at PA, and we're just really excited to have her on our team. So I'll pass it over to Spade Viveros Walton.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Karina. Good afternoon. Buenas tardes, everyone. I'm Spade Viveros Walton, and I'm proud to join Public Advocates as their founding director of higher education. In my role, I'll be leading the higher education program team to advance our advocacy efforts in partnership with students for equitable access to California's public colleges and universities. Before we jump into the meat of today, I'd like to thank our partner organizations with us today, and those of you who are joining as participants, and also our public advocate staff who are here behind the scenes making everything go smoothly. But I'd like to especially shout out to Karina Paredes, who will be serving as our MC, for her leadership in the AB 705 space and for her work in getting us together today in community. So with that, welcome. Thank you so much for the warm welcome here, and I'll hand it off to Karina. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Spade. I really appreciate those words. So we'll move on now with, let's see, there we go, with a brief overview of the agenda. So we're going to kick it off with a poll question at our next slide, but I just want to give you a sense of what we'll be going over today. Really, this webinar is catered by students, experts, researchers, for students, experts, and researchers in this field, and for those who want to learn more and also learn how to get involved. As we know, AB 705 has been around for 3 years, and there's been so many highlights, but still so many gaps that we need to really fulfill and really ensure that we're meeting our students where they are and uplifting the law of AB 705. So I'd like to ground us first in a video. Really want to give a shout out to Students Making a Change and CAP for their support in this work. And I'll pass it over to Nicole. If you could please share the video. The link is in the title. And thank you so much.
Going to community college to pursue my dreams was really exciting. I knew that higher education would be a long journey, but too many Black, Latinx, and first-gen students like me don't have the support, time, and money to graduate if they are wasted on high school-level community college courses that don't count towards a degree. When I started college, I wasn't sure I was ready. A counselor encouraged me to enroll in a remedial high school level math course, even though I took the math I needed to graduate high school. I had no idea how much enrolling in this class would set me back. If I had initially enrolled in college level stats, I would have had a 75% chance of completing that course. But retaking high school math in college reduced the chance of completing college level stats to 31%. If I had taken both stats and a core requisite support course, my chances would have been 89%. In fact, in California's community colleges, only 3% of students transfer to a 4-year college in 2 years. Over 375,000 Black and Latinx students attend colleges that offer a lot of remedial high school level math, even though these classes set students back. And yet, 97% of California community colleges still offer remedial classes that won't help students earn a bachelor's degree. Colleges that offer these courses waste Black, Latinx, and first-gen students' precious time, energy, and money that they can't afford to lose. This is a problem, and it could be illegal, but there is a way to fix it. If your community college is still offering high school courses, it might be in violation of the law. Your time and money are important. As for me, I eventually enrolled in transfer-level statistics with a core requisite support course, and am headed to CSU. I'm sharing my story, so you know your rights and can speak up on campus. You don't have to get sidetracked like me. Go to ab705.org to see if your community college is failing you.
All right, thanks so much, Nicole, for sharing that. And let me just put back the slideshow. But let's see. For right now, I'd like to also just see who's in the audience. So Jess, could you please show us your launch the poll question as I try to put back the slideshow for everyone. There we go. Thanks for bearing with us with all the audio issues and so forth. So as I can see right now, we have advocates, students, some faculty and staff. Great to see y'all. I'll give it one more second before we move on. Just wanting to see who's in the audience joining us today. All right, so about 70% of y'all have voted. %, and I think, well, there we go. So we have a good amount of advocates, we have some students present. Thank you so much again. Really excited to continue this conversation. And I really hope you enjoyed that video. So y'all can get a quick view of that. There we go. The video, again, was a lot of hard work by SMAC, and also a lot of input by CAP, and we are excited to have that video on our ab705.org website, which I'll talk about more in a bit. So moving on, I'm going to hand it over to students making a change, and I'll stop sharing my video. I'm really excited to have y'all hear from Christian, Nikki, and Trillia.
Awesome. Thank you, Karina, for the introduction. Like said, we are students making a change. I'm Nikki Hatfield, and my colleagues here are Trillia Hargrove and Christian Rodriguez. We are here to talk to you about AB 705. What is AB 705? Why is it so important? We are also students at City College of San Francisco. And SMAC is a student-led organization that is focused on making more equitable opportunities for students throughout California. So what is AB 705? AB 705 is a bill that was signed in 2017. And this bill basically reimagined higher education, ensuring that students have the right to transfer level courses. And AB 705, in addition, requires pretty much all of our California community colleges to believe in students and place them in transfer level courses, because we have data that proves that AB 705 works. So yes, AB 705 is a bill that is needed because it empowers students like me to attend and finish college. I know for myself personally, I was thinking about taking a break from school if I hadn't met SMAC and gotten information around AB 705. I was in a space where it was like, I can't be taking all these extra classes, not when I need to pay all these bills. And trying to be a good auntie, I'm trying to be a good sister. I have all these obligations. So AB 705 for me gave me an opportunity that I don't want to take for granted. And if we go to not this slide, but the previous slide, when we go to the previous slide, my colleague Christian will tell you more about why AB 705 is so desperately needed.
All right, thank you, Nikki. So my name is Christian Rodriguez, and I work with SMAC. And SMAC is Students Making a Change, and a lot of our advocacy was centered on educating students about the right to go directly into transfer level courses. A lot of the times what we did in our advocacy was we went to orientations, we went to classes, we held presentations in common areas, and we basically just did our best to educate the student population, and even went to administrators to change up the orientation so students could just go into directly into transfer level courses, so that, you know, obviously they can go directly into transfer level courses. What a lot of this entailed was, you know, specifically about going to the orientations, was that we were just trying to prevent students from taking the placement test. A lot of the times right after orientation, they'd go directly to the placement test or the place where they were holding the placement test, and they would take it. And it was unfair that a lot of these students were being set back just from one day of testing. I vaguely remember, I definitely remember going to those areas and passing out what if you see on the slide, there's like a ticket. This was a ticket that we gave to students with our information on the back that said, contact us, go directly into transfer level math and English courses today. And what entailed after they contacted us, or what they entailed after when we took them from the placement test, was going to the Office of Matriculation, which, if you're unaware, the Office of Matriculation is essentially the facet in the school where they place students into their courses. So if you had taken your placement test, given your results, they would place you into whatever classes they deemed was necessary. So we eventually took like bunches and bunches of students to the matriculation office and told them, hey, we want them to self-place into these courses. But even then, we were met with a lot of resistance. For instance, we could only go at certain times of the day because certain administrators would say, no, there's too many of you, we can't allow this. Or they would say, oh, you know what, make sure that you don't lie, because what we're going to do is we're going to audit your courses, we're going to contact your schools, and we're going to ensure that whatever the information you're giving us is correct, which is ridiculous. They were doing this to a large population of students. So we found it to be really predatory, that they were denying students the rights to go directly into transfer level courses, and that they were setting them back and basically saying, hey, your remediation is more important than your ambition, so and just given that, like, it's been proven, I think, a few times that, more than a few times, this all throughout, like, the data that's been collected, that remedial courses are detrimental to the opportunity for students. So next slide, my colleague. So yeah.
Thanks, Chris. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, I'm gonna say yeah. So if you look at this slide here, right, you can see that students excel, they succeed more when they have access to transfer level courses. So you'll find when you place students, I know Katie's gonna talk about this a lot better than I am, but I just thought this was super drastic. You'll see when you place students directly into transfer level classes and courses, we succeed, even with a lower GPA. Like, for example, if you look at this slide, when you place a student below a transfer level course, just one below, they have an 8% chance of meeting their educational goals. Versus if you place them in a transfer level course with co-requisite support, they have a 45% chance at success. And that is like drastically different. So when we go back to the initial question as to why AB 705 is needed, you can clearly see how transformative it can be. When you go to the next slide, you can see how the data gets broken down and how AB 705 is, quite frankly, helping change students' lives.
So yeah, with the implementation of AB 705, student entry into transfer level English and math has increased dramatically, as can be seen from these percentages, indicating that it was the system failing students rather than the students' own abilities, rather than our own abilities. This increase was most dramatic and prominent here for Black and Latinx students. Now, students were able to use their academic history prior to enrollment, rather than being constrained to a single testing day. Being judged on a single testing day can be particularly unfair to marginalized groups and students whose external circumstances could disproportionately affect their performance. Factors such as limited resources, transportation access, inequitable living. Like, imagine how hard it is to take an exam when you haven't had a proper meal, when you haven't had breakfast. It's really hard to think. Again, the increases show that something was not adding up with these groups being put into remedial courses so disproportionately, when we've already seen that GPA does not need to affect students. It does not need to hold students back, rather, and remedial courses can actually be detrimental to academic journeys. All of these revelations have inspired the catchphrase, "It wasn't Black and brown students not being ready for college, it was the colleges not being ready for Black and brown students." Next slide.
All right. So when we think about remedial courses, I don't think we typically understand the full extent of their issues. Not only do they add more time to somebody's college career, but a lot of that time is typically not even accounted for. They don't account for any college credits. They're kind of a devil on resources, I would say. A lot of time when we go to school, we actually give up some other things that we can't take care of. It's a sacrifice in a way. We can't work as much. We can't ensure that we're not as reliable when it comes to family like issues or things of that nature. And students have more than one dimension to them. You know, there's a myriad of different types of students, and to think that they have the time and money to really have these added courses on them, it's ridiculous. Really, uh, some students have issues with families that they need to take care of. Some students have kids. Some students have to take care of their elderly parents. Some students are essentially support for their families. And so remedial courses, they don't add anything really positive to their load already, just as people and as students. No, not only that, like in my own instance, I'm coming from a more Latinx community. I grew up in the Mission, and moved all around the Bay Area. I've had, I don't know, many countless cousins, uncles, aunts, just try to go to school and try to go towards a career. And they go to community college, or they went to the city college of San Francisco, and they just found themselves just repeating things they had done in high school. I've had a cousin who wanted to be a beautician, and she couldn't get past, I believe, one of the initial college, not even college, one of the initial remedial courses. I've had another cousin who's tried to, I think, became a kind of like an X-ray technician. They also couldn't get past just like the basic courses. And so one of the things that I remember specifically was this one cousin that I had, well, my aunt actually, and she went to school in the 90s, and she ended up in the lowest sequence in English. So she had to take a few classes just to get her into transfer level courses. And she spent 7 years doing that. And immediately right after she had done that, she was able to graduate from UCLA and USC, but that took perseverance. But it was also like, to me, just hearing that story, I get kind of sad, because it's like, that's time that she could have used to really get into her career. That was time that she could have made connections. She could have interned at other jobs. She could have, found other like opportunities to advance her career. And that was taken from her, especially being someone from a low income community as it was, where she was the first person in her immediate family and in our immediate family to ever even consider going to college in that kind of, framing. So yeah, next slide.
So what are some things that we can highlight about AB 705? AB 705 gives all students the right to enroll in transfer level English and math. AB 705 gives all students the right to use their high school performance data to gain access into transfer level courses. And it also gives students like us the right to say, yes, I am college ready. Next slide.
So what could we do to ensure that we hold schools accountable for college completion? What could we do to ensure that students can ensure that colleges are implementing and abiding by the law to have them directly go into transfer level courses? Next slide.
Okay, beautifully said, y'all. So before we pass it on to Katie Hearn, it's important that you guys get a glimpse of this wonderful tool that we have created in partnership with public advocates. And it basically just lets you know how you can get involved, the importance of direct enrollment, and how you can initiate your right to transfer level courses. It's like, so this is a tool, especially if you've been denied access to a transfer level course. You use this so that way you can gain that access. And in addition, you can visit our website at ab705.org. And I want to thank you all for listening to our experiences, the groundwork that we've been doing. And I urge just everyone on this call to just listen to students, because it's a time right now where we can reimagine higher education with stronger implementation. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Nikki and Christian and Trillia. I really appreciate hearing your stories as students who've been mobilizing on this issue. I'm Katie Hearn. I'm a professor of English at Skyline College, and I am co-founder of the California Acceleration Project, and we've been working on reforming remediation for 11 years. And AB 705 has done amazing things at pushing that work forward. So Katrina, if you could go to the next slide. So in this slide, you can see the impact of AB 705. In the first year of AB 705, full implementation was fall 2019. That's the orange bar. And the blue is before colleges really began expanding access to transfer level English and math. And you can see that in English, it doubled the share of students who started directly in college composition without having to take a remedial class. And now statewide, it was fall of 2019, it was 95% of students started directly in a transferable college composition class, up from 44% before these changes. And in math, it tripled students direct enrollment in transfer level math from 26% to 79%. But you can see the difference between the two disciplines is that in math, there's still a pretty substantial enrollment in remedial courses. So 21% of students in fall 2019 were still starting in a remedial math course. And that's an area of concern that we're going to talk more about. Okay, next slide. And here you can see, well, how did they do? You know, what happened as a result of being enrolled directly into transfer level classes? And the answer is students were much more likely to complete transfer level English and math when they started directly. So this is statewide data. Completion of transfer level English went from 49% in a year to 67% in a year. And in math, it went from 26% to 50%. And when you translate those percentages into like human beings, it's an additional 64,000 students who began in transfer level English and actually successfully completed it compared to before these changes, and an additional 38,000 students in math. Okay, next slide. And this slide really, for those of you who are students at colleges where you're still, you know, counselors or faculty or your guided placement process is still giving you a choice between a remedial class and a transfer level class, think very carefully about that choice, because this data shows the implications of that choice. So in the first year of AB 705, 70% of the students who started directly in transfer level English successfully completed it that year. But the students who started one remedial course below, it was only 25% of those students who actually successfully completed college composition in that year. And in math, it was 60% if you started in transfer level and only 14% if you took a remedial course below transfer level. So I think that the main point of this is that it's very, very, very common for students to have uncertainties coming into college and sort of doubt their abilities, or maybe feel like, oh, I've never been very good at math, I've never been very good at English, and sort of then be kind of vulnerable to the message that you don't belong in transfer level classes. And we just are here to encourage you to resist that message, because you know, you think those classes are going to give you a boost in college, and actually the reverse is true. It's going to hurt your ability to make progress in college. Next slide. So we, in partnership with public advocates, we put out a report called Still Getting There about AB 705 implementation. And what we did is we looked at the course schedules of 114 community colleges to see, are colleges still offering a lot of remedial classes, or have they mostly sort of shifted, given the research showing that all students are better served starting in transfer level? Are colleges offering transfer level courses, or are they still hanging on to remedial courses? So next slide. And what we found is that its implementation across 114 colleges is really uneven. So the college that you happen to attend, it's sort of the luck of the draw. Like whatever college is nearest to you might be a really strong implementer of AB 705, and therefore you're much more likely to be able to make progress on your goals as a student. Or it might be a really weak implementer of AB 705 and still offering a ton of remedial math. And then that's going to hurt your chances. If you got caught in one of those classes, that's going to hurt your ability to make progress on your goals. So a shout out to the 3 colleges out of 114 who are offering 100% transfer level courses in English and math is College of the Sequoias, Pasadena City, and Porterville College. So if you're lucky enough to attend one of those colleges, whatever math or English class you end up in is not going to reduce your chance of making progress in college because they're not offering any remedial courses anymore. And there's a lot of colleges in English that have really, really cut back their remedial offerings. So 77 colleges in the state are offering between 90% and 100% of their kind of fall schedule at the transfer level. But in math, it's only 17%. So there's still a very high risk with colleges offering a lot of remedial sections. There's a high risk to students that they'll end up in those classes without understanding the consequences for their own goals. And you can see that in English, there's only one college that's offering 60 to 69% transfer level, which means there were, sort of 40 to, 31% to 40% remedial, but it's 21 colleges in math. So if you add up the sort of weak implementers together, you have 69 colleges where remedial math still makes up more than 20% of the introductory math that they're offering. And then another sort of disturbing statistic is that 75 colleges offer more sections of remedial math than transfer level math with co-requisite support, which means just typically it would be like an additional 1 or 2 units that are attached to the transfer level class. So you have more time with the instructor, more practice in class, more support to be successful. Nationally, the evidence is unequivocal that those co-requisite support models are so much better for students than a standalone remedial course. So if you are one of those students who feels uneasy about going directly into a transfer level class, then the solution is to enroll in one that has co-requisite support attached to it. And if your college isn't offering that, enroll in a different college, take it online somewhere else. Okay, next slide. The last thing I want to point out is that there's real racial inequity when the implementation of AB 705 is so uneven across the system. What we're seeing is that Black and Latinx students disproportionately attend colleges that are still holding on to so many remedial math offerings. We found that colleges with at least 2,000 Black students statewide are over twice as likely to offer a high proportion of remedial math than all other colleges. So that's really a disturbing thing. And then this last slide, it sort of connects the dots about why that matters. So when you have colleges, when you have Black and Latinx students disproportionately attending colleges that are still offering a ton of remedial math, that means that Black and Latinx students are going to enroll in remedial math at much higher rates, which we're seeing in the data. And then that means that Black and Latinx students also are going to have lower completion than other students. So it's a direct consequence of the decision that colleges are making to hang on to these remedial courses that there's going to be inequities in completion. Okay, next slide. So that's the sort of the bottom line of the research, is that we've seen tremendous gains come as a result of AB 705 that, the 10 years before that, we hadn't seen anything like that. But too many colleges are still offering too many remedial courses, especially in math. And so that's why we really need to be thinking about mobilizing students and informing you about your civil right to enroll in transfer level classes.
Karina, you are muted.
It's 2021 and I still don't know how to unmute myself. All right, thank you so much, Smack, for really laying the groundwork as to why this law matters, what remedial education reform did to students, and the experiences that have really shaped now informing the importance to continue implementing this law faithfully and really doing right by students. Thank you, Katie, for sharing these highlights. and the research and really showing the tremendous gains. But again, who is being impacted the most to this day? We still see Black and Latinx students have an equitable access to transfer level courses throughout the state. So now, just to give us a quick pause, a quick stretch break, get a drink of water, we're going to launch another poll question. And Jess, can you please do that? Thank you. So this poll question, from your experience, what are the biggest barriers preventing students from enrolling in and completing transfer level classes? It's a multiple choice question, so if you can select the answers that most correspond to your student experience, to your faculty experience, your information of being on the ground or being close to this issue. And we'll give folks about, let's see, 20 seconds to answer. And I can see right now, folks are really resonating with colleges believe students need remedial education. So that's still a common thought that is heard and seen throughout the colleges. And that one seems to be getting more than the majority of response. And also, folks are naming colleges do not provide enough support to students who enroll in transfer level classes. Let's see, 5 more seconds to see our third top answer. Looks like a tie between counselors fail to inform students that they have a right to enroll in transfer level classes and are more likely to succeed if they enroll directly. So as you can see, these main issues are really stemming from students not getting the guidance that's needed and from the college, and really being failed by their college, unfortunately. And now with that, just wanting to give us something to think about from those that are on the ground, those who are experiencing this and seeing this play out. We're going to move on to the next section, which is potential legal challenges. So I'm excited to pass it over to Huang Pham, our law clerk at Public Advocates. And again, now we're moving more into the what's going on right now and where are we going with implementation of AB 705.
Thanks so much, Karina. I just want to give a huge shout out to the Smackers. I think every single time I hear y'all speak about this, I'm so moved by the stories that you have. I actually have a quote from Trillia. I thought that was amazing. She said, Trillia, just correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but you said, it was not that Black and brown students were unready for college. It was that college was unready for Black and brown students. And that just resonated so much with me, because I'm like, yeah, our institutions are not ready for Black and brown students, and we need to make sure they're ready. And if there's any indication of that, AB 705 outcomes have been an indication of that. So just thank y'all so much for showing up and sharing your stories. My name is Huang Pham. I am a law clerk at Public Advocates. I was also placed in remedial courses when I started college, a remedial math course actually. And so this is really full circle for me. I'm currently law school would be a third year student in law school, and I'm at UC Davis. Go ahead, next slide. So I really want to start out by grounding us in the foundation of AB 705. AB 705 requires colleges to maximize the chances the student completes transfer level courses in 1 year. I think, like, when you really think about this language, the first question that would come to mind is, well, what does maximize actually mean? Next slide. So given all the data that Katie has shared with us, we know that a college maximizes completion of transfer level courses by directly enrolling students in them and providing co-requisite support as needed. So when we think about the groups of students that might fall under, who would enroll in directly enroll in a transfer level course, you really have the students who don't need to be in remedial courses at all and should directly enroll in a transfer level course. And then you have students who need additional support, but data suggests that co-requisite support plus the direct enrollment is most effective for achieving the standard in AB 705. So when a college has too many remedial courses, it's evidence that a college is not maximizing the chances the student completes transfer level courses, because we know direct enrollment and co-requisite support eliminates the need for remedial courses at all. So too many remedial courses is likely a legal violation. And I think Katie brought up this data earlier too, but I think with this graphic here, I added a little bit to visualizing what this actually means. So 69 colleges currently still have over 20% remedial math sections. So if you're at a college with 20 math sections, 16 of those are going to be transfer level and 4 are going to be remedial. The questions that I want us to be thinking about when we think about this statistic is, will there be enough seats in transfer level courses for all entering students? And even if there is, will the existence of remedial courses lead them to enroll? We know that students can make uninformed choices, especially if the college is not informing them about data or statistics like the ones that you're hearing about today. And students can also come to self-doubt and get counseled into remedial courses, which is something that often happens where a counselor or a professor may say, hey, maybe you're not ready for a remedial course, or you should start out a remedial course first because it might help you later down the road. So to address these issues, we really want to make sure that students know your rights, right? And so the next slide will kind of get into what your rights actually are. Next slide. So a lot of this has already been discussed, but I just want to reiterate 3 main points. The first right that a student has under AB 705 is the right to directly enroll in transfer level English and math. The second thing is you have a right to be placed based on your high school performance. So this is your high school grade point average. It's English and math courses that you may have taken in high school and the grades that you got in those courses. And you can also self-report your high school data. So if you can't get access to your high school transcript, for example, if you've been out of high school for 10 or so years and it's hard to get access to your high school transcript, you can self-report your high school data, which is also okay under the law. And guided placement is also okay, but it can't be test-like. So for example, it can't request students to solve problems like in a survey. It can't ask a question like how would you analyze the first paragraph of this article? It can also ask curriculum questions like, do you have experience with writing essays that require you to analyze books and quote from multiple sources? Questions about the curriculum or surveys that ask students to demonstrate their skills can trigger a student's anxiety and lead them to enroll in a remedial course. And the last bullet, I think, is one of the most important. It's that you have a right to be informed of AB 705 and your placement options in the college catalog and orientation and advising materials, on the college website, and in written communication counseling services. Some colleges still say nothing about AB 705 in their website or even a college catalog. So just make sure that you know that you have the right to be informed of your AB 705 rights from the college that you're attending. And this is really important, right? Because the rights that are all listed here, they're intended to support that basic foundation of AB 705 that colleges need to maximize the chances a student completes transfer level courses in 1 year. If a college violates any of these rights, a student would likely have a strong legal challenge. Next slide. Another legal issue that could come up is unlawful discrimination. The underlying foundation of an unlawful discrimination claim is that there's some unfair treatment based on a characteristic about someone that they can't change and has nothing to do with their ability. Under the law, students may not be denied equal access to the benefits of AB 705 based on their race, gender, or sexual orientation, including other identifying characteristics. An unlawful discrimination claim here would likely focus on race, but it generally is hard to prove. So there are really 3 questions that we want to focus on to think about whether or not unlawful discrimination exists. The first one is, are students of color disproportionately enrolling in remedial courses, especially when they have the same high school GPA as white students? The graphic I have to the right here would kind of demonstrate what this could look like. So say, for example, at your college, you have a school demographic that is very diverse or somewhat diverse like it is here. But then when you look at the class section demographics in the remedial and college level courses, most of the students of color are enrolling in the remedial courses, and then most white students are enrolling in the transfer level courses. Something like that would really get at the claim of unlawful discrimination that is outlined in the first bullet. Under the second bullet, we're looking at, are colleges serving a significant proportion of Black and or Latinx students, also weak implementers? And when we talk about weak implementers, as Katie mentioned, we're really talking about the colleges that have a high proportion of remedial courses as compared to transfer level courses. And then the final question that we can ask is, are students of color being counseled to take remedial courses? Such as a question from a counselor may sound something like, transfer level courses are advanced, pre-transfer level courses are for students who want more support. And they would kind of steer that student into a remedial course, or even from a professor who might ask, did you feel prepared to register for a transfer level course, or do you need more support? You can imagine like these questions that a student might ask, or or not a student might ask, but an adult at the school, like a counselor or a professor, if they ask the student one of these questions, it might make the student feel like, you know what, maybe I should take the remedial course. And I think that's the issue that we're trying to solve here with AB 705, is the fact that students actually can and will succeed if they enroll directly in transfer level courses. Ultimately, though, for the unlawful discrimination claim to be successful, we would need more evidence that something like one of these three things is actually happening at a college or district. Next slide. Students really have the best chance of completing transfer level courses if they can enroll directly and receive support, eliminating any need for remedial courses that only hold them back. There are many obstacles that students face when registering for classes. Make sure you know your rights. And of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thanks so much for listening. And I'm going to pass it to Andrew Nickens, who will talk about how you can get involved in AB 705 advocacy.
Thank you very much. So student advocacy. Thank you so much for the introduction, and just a little bit more about myself. My name is Andrew Nickens. I'm the Vice President of Legislative Affairs for the Student Senate for California Community Colleges. We're recognized by the legislature, the Board of Governors, and the Governor's Office as the official voice of the 2.1 million community college students in California. California community colleges are vast. There's 116 of them. I think even more, and they're constantly growing and changing, but they're spread all throughout the state. And many students don't know what they can do to affect change at their local level, what they can do to make AB 705 work for them, to prevent what has happened to their peers from happening to them, staying enrolled in remedial courses, not being placed in the appropriate courses. So I'm here today just to bring to you some strategies and things that you can do in your area, either at a local level, at a district level, at a statewide level, to bring about change for our students. Next slide, please. So what can students do? First and foremost, know your rights. Earlier in the presentation, we covered some things under AB 705 that a student is entitled to. It's important that you know your rights so that you don't fall into the trap. You don't have to take placement tests. You don't have to take remedial courses. And if you feel unsure about being placed in a transfer level course, you always have the ability to take transfer level class with coworkers support and other supports like embedded tutors, extra time with the professor. There are always ways, there are proven methods and ways that you can make use of to make sure that your experience in a transfer level course is successful. Also, find good teachers. I know myself, I use Rate My Professor all the time to determine which teachers are best for me. Making sure that you're taking a class with a professor that will support your student success. Ask other peers in your community, what professors have you taken that have been good for you? And then finally, take math online at a college that will give you access to transfer level coursework. If you're taking, if you're been told to take math at a college at a remedial level, you should look elsewhere. But more importantly, you can raise your voice for your locals, on behalf of yourself and local students, to ensure that your college changes its ways. Next slide, please. So what can you do at your college? Demand stronger implementation on your campus that includes coworkers support. We don't want to just transition to transfer level courses. We want to make sure students can succeed in them with the appropriate support, coworkers support, embedded tutors, and demand that resources be dedicated towards these transfer level courses to ensure that they're successful and not towards remedial ones. Transfer level courses are a more successful vehicle. And when colleges dedicate more of their time to supporting this transfer level work rather than remedial work, they're investing in their students. They're making a statement that you can do this and we believe in you. Make that call to action and let them know that students are counting on the college for them to be believed in, for them to get the transfer level coursework they need. And also spread this message at your college. Demand that your college tells students that their chances of completing a transfer level course in 1 year if they start in a transfer level versus remedial course. Chances are students at your college may not be aware of that. It's somewhat of a point that doesn't seem to make sense at first. Taking an easier class versus a harder class, but walk them through why this can be more successful for you, and encourage your college to be aware of these changes, aware of the data that makes it such that a student is more successful in a transfer level course. And make them follow through on that by showing the data. Publish success rates by professor. Disaggregate based on race and ethnicity, so you can tell which teachers and professors get the best results with Black and Latinx students. Finally, demand AB 705 training for counselors, especially those that are telling students what their best option is in terms of taking courses. Demand that they look at the data, they're aware of the student outcomes, and that taking a transfer level course means that you'll be more successful in the long run. And finally, demand an end to remedial courses. Again, having more remedial courses than transfer level courses is a statement from that college about what they believe a student should take, that they're not prepared, that their students of color aren't valuable, aren't worth it, aren't college ready. Demand an end to this so that more students are successful. Next slide, please. So here's our call to action. Those are our demands. Take those demands and push them into your local college level, at a district level, and at the highest level, at the state level, on the Board of Governors. We encourage you to call in during the meetings of the California Community College Board of Governors to tell your story during public comment, and also at local student government meetings. At every college, there's a student body association who should be representing your voice, you, the students, and meeting with faculty and administrators to push that student voice into decisions that are made by the campus, to effectuate the influence that students have. So get connected with your campus government, ensure that they're aware of this AB 705 issue, and tell them to get involved in this AB 705 issue, to raise this to its college. So altogether, advocate for stronger implementation at your college. Work with your student body association. Work with your college's leadership, the president, the vice president of instruction, deans of math and English. All these partners are people on your campus that make decisions about curriculum. The deans of math and English are responsible for the curriculum in the department. The vice president of instruction sets the schedule and reviews some of those things. The president is the leader of the college. These are all people that your students need to sit down and have meetings with and tell them why this matters. Show them the data. Use the wonderful resources that we have presented here today, and tell them that your college needs to change its ways for the betterment of all students. Next slide, please. I believe at this point I'm turning it back over to Karina. Thank you so much.
Karina, you're muted.
Wow. If I had $1 every time I forget to unmute myself, just want to say I really appreciate Wayne outlaying what students' rights are and where we are moving forward and what students can do on their campus and how we can provide support with that. And also thank you again, Andrew, for showing how student voice matters and ways that students can plug in. So I'm going to stop sharing for 1 second, and I'd like to invite all the panelists to come back on as I share my screen to illustrate the website. But I just want you all to be on camera for a second so folks can see you all. And right now, my team is working on getting the Q&A section ready for us. So we'll be prepping that in a second. Let's see. So with the work of all the folks on that you're seeing, we've thankfully to SMAC, we have been able to work off of their incredible platform, the ab705.org website. So I'd like to just share with you all that we have, if you go to ab705.org, you'll see that We have ways to learn more about the problem and some tools. So we have our video on here now that's live. We have also an infographic like the one you saw earlier that we shared with you all. And let me just refresh it 1 second. And we also have, there we go. So as you can see, our infographic is really catered for students to understand why it matters to directly enroll into transfer level courses, what their rights are, what they could do to make their voice heard, and also ways to get involved, which include reaching out to us at Public Advocates. We don't want students to be alone in this fight, and this form right here, let me just, there we go. So this form is an easy way to get in contact with the team here at PA. I won't go through all of it, but as you can see, excuse me, there's just an array of quick questions that we ask to better understand your situation. And then from there, I'll reach out to you to better create that relationship and find ways to assist you. And we also, again, just want to go back to this really great website. It has other tabs too that are really helpful for students. And shout out to SMAC for this ab705.org platform. So I'll stop sharing there. And then lastly, one more piece is the Action Hub that's just our contact info for you all to get connected with us via email and other ways on social media and so forth. So you can see the name of all the folks. If you can please continue to uplift this work on social media and through your own circles. We have some hashtags if you'd like to shout out this event to continue to keep the beat drumming on this important work. And again, the website is right below. So from there, I'm just going to pass it over to Nicole. She has, I think, a question that will be directed at first SMAC and then CAP.
Hi, everyone. Thank you to the person who submitted this question in the Q&A section. I'm going to just read it and then I'll invite folks who spoke today to respond. So the question is, the vision for success commits to pairing high expectations with high support, but high support is not a decision of the Chancellor's office. It is a choice of individual districts. So what we see statewide is high expectations with no understood statewide understanding of high support. In other words, colleges are not held to account in this regard. So what can the Board of Governors and the Chancellor's office do to counteract this? Does high support need to be defined? Does there need to be mechanisms of accountability? So does anyone from our group want to kick us off with a response? I see Katie nodding, so I'll hand it over to Katie first.
Yeah, Colum, thank you. And Colum is a member of the Board of Governors. He's the student representative. So really appreciate you being here today, Colum. I think it's a really important point, and I'd give an answer in two parts. I think the first part of the sort of high support part of the equation is that it needs to be structural. So co-requisite models where the students are not just enrolled in a 3-unit English composition class, but they have access to a 5-unit English composition class, and especially if they're coming in with lower high school GPA, or maybe disabilities, or some reason that they really need additional support to be successful, that structure is not only dramatically more effective for students, but also more equitable. That Black and Latinx students are more equitably represented in completion when they take a co-requisite model than they're just thrown into a transfer level class without any support. So I think the first part the Board of Governors could do is to just, I think we need a statewide policy that clarifies remedial courses need to stop being on the books. So the solution is never going to be a remedial course, and to really clearly steer colleges toward this structure of co-requisite models that many colleges are having great success with. So there's lots of colleges around the state that we can learn from about how to do that work. And then I would say the second part of it is being intentional about professional development for faculty and sort of around how do you teach inside these new structures? Like if somebody has some foundational math that's rusty, how do you get them quickly up to speed on that while also moving forward on the higher goals of the transfer level class? That's a skill that teachers need to learn how to do. And how do you build a community in the classroom? How do you, sort of how to teach effectively? And then I would say that the last part of the professional development needs to be very intentionally equity oriented around implicit bias and equity-based grading and other, sort of really looking at our role as teachers to support student success. And that, if the Board of Governors could do that two-part, like really focused professional development plus absolute clarity about no more remedial courses, co-requisite support, I think that would go a really long way.
Great, thanks so much, Katie. Does anyone else want to respond? Maybe someone, I see Trilia. Okay, great.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to a specific part. It is the choice of individual districts. And I think that's why this toolkit is so very important, because SMAC is focused on, we're focused on overall student advocacy, but we do keep tabs on our specific administration at City College of San Francisco. And that, like, we've talked about this within SMAC, how we need to empower students because we can't be there at individual colleges. And that's why we need these student groups to form. And so they can hold their administrations accountable, and student accountability, not being indebted to the administration necessarily, is so very important. And that allows us to give a lot of freedom and valid criticism. So if this could go into the more official sphere, like the chancellors and the Board of Governors, just keeping an eye out for these grassroots organizations that they've uplifted us. They have uplifted us so much, and or at least heard our voices. And if they see a grassroots organization starting to come up among students, keeping an eye on that. So.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Trilia. Wang, or yeah, go ahead, Wang.
Yeah, I can just jump in real quick too. I think one of the things that's really unique about this partnership is that Public Advocates is also a legal org, and we have this legal arm that we can kind of pull if we need to. So one of the things that we're working on right now is actually looking at colleges. You mentioned the fact that it's choice of individual districts. We're really looking at colleges that are the weakest implementers, that have the most remedial courses in proportion to transfer level courses, and really finding ways to put pressure on them to really look at all these other colleges that are essentially implementing all transfer level courses, and what are the results there, and then pushing them around these legal claims that we have and the law itself to say, hey, you don't necessarily have to have all these remedial courses. And not just that, the data actually shows that having those courses aren't the best for your students. And we know that, administrators, we know faculty members, we know everyone really cares about their students. So it's just giving information, but also really pushing them to improve their outcomes for their students. And so we're looking at certain colleges right now and finding ways that we can actually move that work forward. I don't know if Nicole, you want to add on to that, because I know you're the legal mind behind everything, and I'm just a law clerk. But yeah, that's essentially what we're looking at right now with Public Advocates Legal Enforcement.
You are much more than just a law clerk, Wang. So, you are an awesome partner. Yeah, I mean, I would just say, to say it directly, that there is a legal obligation to maximize the chances that students complete transfer level classes within a year. And part of that legal, obligation, I think, is for districts to educate themselves on the research. But also, I think the Chancellor's Office and the Board of Governors has such an important role to play in aggregating and interpreting that research. For those of us who have read those reports, they're awesome, but they're they take a while to get through. So if y'all could do something to distill that into some kind of, easy to follow guidance for all the districts for which you are, kind of holding accountable, then perhaps that could go a long way in ensuring they meet the legal sort of standard. If anyone else has any questions, please put them in the chat or in the Q&A box. That would be great. And actually, I'm sorry, Andrew, did you have anything you wanted to say in response to that question?
Sure, I'd be happy to just add a few thoughts maybe while we're waiting for another question from our attendees. But I would just like to add that from the Student Senate perspective, especially in our role as a consultatory, as a member with consultatory privileges on the Board of Governors, we have been consistent in asking and raising this to our partners, our system partners, and to the Board of Governors that students desperately need guidance and enforcement from the Chancellor's office, and for the Board of Governors to show leadership on these areas. I mean, hearkening back to the lawsuit in 1991 that originally correctly alleged that students, Latinx and Latinx students and Black students were being disproportionately affected by the use of placement tests. And since then, I mean, after that lawsuit, there was no systematic guidance. So we're still kind of lacking. We're still kind of in this dead period of if we need the system-wide guidance, but we're just not getting it to the level that our students truly need. And now that we have the data, we have this wonderful group of advocates and leaders. You know, we really should start pushing this much more heavily. And so that's actually what I added. And you'll continue to see that from the Student Senate on the Board of Governors and our role in consultation council to the Board of Governors. So I'd just like to add that.
Great, thank you so much. I unmuted myself correctly this time. So I'm going to just share my screen, but I'm waiting to see if there's any other questions that we could answer. Let me just do that really quick. Want to highlight with the time that we do have right now. Again, please check out the website. Students, again, like you've heard, you are not alone. We have tools on this website for you. For those who are connected with students, please pass this along with them. Again, there's a Know Your Rights infographic, which I already went over, and just showing it to you again with the contact form link. And then we also have the other graphic. Let me just move this toolbar, which is right here below. I didn't get a chance to share it with you all, but this is effective tips for student advocacy. So just giving you a quick look at that with the AB 705 link on there, the infographic link on here as well. And I'm just going to walk through it really quick to show you all. And again, I'm going to see if there's any other questions. And just a comment, the student voice is very loud. Engage on your local campus through the associate students and share your experiences. So at Public Advocates, we strive to uplift our community partnership model. And by doing so, as you can see, we work with those most impacted on the ground with students. We work with other folks too, like our advocate partners or research partners. And we really want to work in alignment to ensure that we're using all the possible strategies, like the legal strategy, like the policy strategy. And I think we've all seen in the last decade, things have changed drastically with remedial education, but we can't continue to move forward with Band-Aid solutions. We really need to say enough is enough, and we can't let remedial education derail more student journeys and more educational goals. And again, just want to reiterate that students, you're not alone. Please reach out to us. The contact form is in the ab705.org website. I dropped in the exit survey as well. We would love to connect with you and any also that are involved, like faculty or staff that are eager to work on this issue. We would love to talk more with you. If there are any other questions, it's going to take a quick pause, but I think we can wrap up. Let me just see the chat box really quick.
Karina, I know that there's some folks that are raising their hands that are part of the audience. And I just wanted to clarify, if you raise your hand and you have a question, it's better if you put it on the chat because you won't be able to speak to the whole group. So I'm just clarifying that because I see a couple of hands raised in the participant list.
Thanks for that, Spade. Yeah, please put the question in the Q&A box. It's just easier for us to be able to read it back to the audience and to be able to refer back to it for our panelists.
And
so I'll give
I'll
folks a
actually
minute for that.
Sorry, and I'll just say this in Spanish, just in case there's someone out there who wants to ask a question in Spanish. Si tiene alguna pregunta en español, la puede también poner en el chat. Y aquí tenemos a varias personas que hablan español y podemos contestar las preguntas.
Great. I'll give folks a minute for that. All right. Well, while we wait for our folks, let's just want to give room for my colleagues here, if fellow presenters, if they have any other final thoughts that they'd wish to share with those online hearing and listening to you all right now. I want to give folks a little bit more time to ask any questions in case they're typing them out.
I think just one comment, as always, thank you to all the presenters and the data that everybody has brought together, the experiences that everybody has shared, and it's always valuable. That's all.
Thanks, Trillia. And let's see, we have one question that popped up. My district chose to organize a video promoting AB 705 and upload it to YouTube. How duplicative is this across districts seeking to implement this legislation? Any thoughts on that, on the effort? It sounds like to put material out there, but maybe it's not in alignment with others. Any thoughts?
My sense of working with colleges is that the colleges that did that made a video tended to be strong implementers. And then the colleges that are weak implementers and really hanging on to a lot of remedial courses, they're not producing videos like that. And they're also often not telling students about the difference between, like, if you choose the remedial class, this is your likelihood of success. If you choose the transfer level class, this is your likelihood of success. And so there's a sort of a, it's like withholding key information and making remedial classes seem really supportive and really like a good option for you. So I think it could be duplicated, but the barrier to that is this belief that a lot of students don't belong in the transfer level, and sort of this continuing to want to steer students into remedial. So I sort of think really the thing we're going to need to fully address this is we're going to need to just, the system is going to need to just put a firm line and say, you can no longer be offering those courses when the evidence is so overwhelming. Until that happens, I think it's going to be a lot harder.
So we did have a question in Spanish, and I'll go ahead and translate it into English. And then if someone who speaks Spanish can do it, then we'll do it that way. If not, you can say it in English and I'll do translation after you say your answer. So good afternoon. Thank you for this workshop. One question. Is there a possibility of sharing this information with schools in West Contra Costa? In our county, there is not a lot of information specifically around this topic. Thank you.
Does anyone have any thoughts on that? I think my automatic answer is that yes, we can connect with you and we can provide information on West Contra Costa. And if, let's see, I can translate that in Spanish while other folks think if there's any connections. Esa respuesta es para Petrolina Fernández. Muchas gracias por su pregunta. Perdón que no tenemos una manera de oírla en español, pero gracias por preguntar esto. Mi respuesta es que sí, quiero conectar con usted para poder averiguar más de ese distrito y para poder ayudarla saber más de la información para su distrito de West Contra Costa, le puedo poner mi domicilio electrónico aquí para que usted pueda mandarme un mensaje y después de allí podamos hablar más sobre cómo ayudar y asistirla. So I just responded that I'd like to connect with her and I can provide my email address. And while I do that, there's another question, more for K-12, and it asks, does anyone have an interest in talking more about the responsibilities of high schools to help students be prepared for college requirements in English and math? So I'll pass that over to Katie to answer.
I mean, I think this is absolutely a both and situation, that we want our K-12 systems to provide the strongest and most equitable education to all students. So that work absolutely is essential. But I think there's a tendency in when we start to talk about remediation in community colleges to want to just point our fingers at them and not take any responsibility for the role our systems are playing in the poor outcomes and the inequitable outcomes. And so I would just sort of say, yes, we should absolutely be working with K-12 districts, but not as a way to deflect the changes that we have a responsibility to make. Because when I share this data about the difference between enrolling below transfer or enrolling in transfer level, that is wholly our house. That is completely under our control. And we could make a dramatic difference for students if we just stopped offering those remedial classes. And that's our responsibility to do.
Thanks so much for that, Katie. And just checking the chat box again. All right. I think that wraps it up. And how much time do we have? With 12 minutes to spare, so giving you 12 minutes back of your Tuesday. Please fill out the exit form survey, which I will send again. And again, just thank you so much for joining. We aren't the only ones working in this important issue. We have other advocates across the state, a lot of partners that are also pushing the button and really moving the needle with us on this. So just really want to thank other folks that are also working on this issue, like the Trust West, the Campaign for College Opportunity. I know the Institute for College Access and Success is interested in this field too. And at the end of the day, just students are so important and so needed in this movement. And I just really want to thank my fellow presenters here for being such incredible movement builders and such resilient organizers. Really excited to see where this goes. COVID, of course, is of the utmost importance right now, but we can't let this time roll us back and give a reason for us to just fall back into the old ways of remedial education. We really need to step up as advocates and students and those who care about this issue. And we all should care, because again, who is being impacted the most that we see? Black and Brown students, African American, Black, Latinx students, yes, have access to these courses, but what does that actually mean? What does access look like when they have more remedial ed courses on their campus and transfer level courses? So at the end of the day, what are colleges doing to enroll students in these classes? How are we building that student-centered culture and environment on campus? So with that being said, just again, thank you so much. And I'm going to include the links in here again for y'all. And I hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday. I'm really looking forward to connecting with you all offline.